All right, so this is what we're gonna do. Plan is to load up all the individual parts onto my trailer. Then once I have them on my trailer, I'm gonna drive them up my driveway. And the reason why we're doing this is, as you guys can see, my driveway is super steep. And this forklift, I don't think it'll carry everything up there, just because it's, like I said, it's really steep. So we're gonna take everything apart. This box so far is it's actually held up pretty well. It got delivered all in one piece. Nothing was broken or cracked, so they packaged it pretty good. But disassembling it or taking it apart, it's not too difficult. But yeah, we're gonna put everything one piece at a time and get everything up there. We have all the supports back here, and when you guys get your package, they will be screwed down to the pallet. So ours came in this corner right here, and you have a bunch of these screws in there, and they're 8mm. But yeah, you'll definitely have to unscrew all of that, which is pretty smart because then it keeps everything in place. So we got part of the first parts out, so we're going to continue with the rest. So we cleared out this corner area, and this is where we're going to place our table, and we've laid out some of the parts over here. So I'm going to show you guys how to put this together. Seems pretty straightforward, so let's get to it. Pardon the organized confusion we got going on. We laid out some parts, and we're going to start with the midsection of the table. So we have these outside posts where the rails will go in, and then in the middle is where the slats are. So we're going to start with the middle, and when you guys get your package, most of these long pieces that we're going to set up are going to come in the longer box that you got there. So we pulled those out, and as you guys can see, they're numbered 1, and then each leg on each end is also numbered. So you got 1 and 2. So how we're going to do it is we're going to do 1 and 2. And the way you want to orient these is, you'll notice that there's 4 sets if you lay them down like this. So you have 1, 2, 1. But if you lay them down, you'll see that this one orients that way. And then you have the other set, when you lay them down the same way, that orient the opposite way. So when you go to install the one on the left, and how we're going to do it is we're going to have the gantry facing, or so when it zeroes out, it's going to be back there, and then this will be kind of the front of the machine, and we're going to have our control box here. So when you guys go to set these up, these will go like this. You want to make sure that the wheel is towards the inside, and then you'll have on the outside this piece right here where the other piece will set. So that's the left side, and then we got the right side right here. Let me go around like so. So we're gonna do this, and then we'll show you guys how it's coming along. Alright guys, so we started with this midsection and we just finished putting it together. I'm going to give you guys a quick walk around or a quick rundown of how we set it up. So you're going to have these slats right here. There's going to be 1, 2, 3, and then 4. There's 2 in the middle, and then you have these C channels that are going to go on each side. So how you want to orient these is the opening is towards the outside. Same on the other side, is going to be towards the outside. And then the legs, how you want to orient the legs is, as you guys can see, the opening is towards the inside. So it'll look like this on the left side, and then it's going to look like this on the right side. So as you guys can see. And then what you're going to do is you're going to bolt down these legs right here. And there's going to be a few screws or a few nuts that are going to come with the table. The ones that you're going to use for the legs are going to be the 3/4 inch ones, and then the ones to bolt down the C channel on the outside is going to be 5/8. So 5/8 on the outside, and then 3/4 on the inside for the legs. Same with these ones right here. These ones are going to be, actually there's going to be a bag with a bunch of nuts and bolts put together. So that's going to go here, and you're going to have one here, one on the inside. And then what I would also recommend you guys getting is a tap, M8 by 1.25. And the reason why you want this is because these have a pain in them. You know, when you screw these on, when you start putting in the bolts, you want to do it by hand, because if you force it, you might cross thread them. So in case your bolts aren't going in, just use this tap to chase it through, and then you can put the bolts in. But you should be able to put the bolts in by hand, fairly easy. You just have to move it around, but make sure when you put everything together, don't tighten it all the way yet. So quick recap on these linear guides. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that these two gussets are on the inside all the way around for the post, and then you want to make sure that you flip this, you align the insert nuts with the slotted holes that are on the top, then you flip it over, and then you can put the nuts in there and start snugging everything down. So what I did is I snug both ends down and tighten them, and then once I tighten them, then I space this one right here from this corner to that corner 30 inches. So 30 inches here, and then I did 30 inches there. That sets all of these kind of in the middle. And then lastly, you want to make sure that you guys pay attention. So there is a specific side to these linear guides, and you'll notice on one of them it has like this metal piece right here. So you'll see that there, and then on this side, this other one doesn't have it. So the one that has it, that's going to be the one, or the one that doesn't have it, this is where the wires are going to go. So it's going to be on this side. It's going to be about 7 inches that it's going to stick out. So just make sure that wherever you guys want to set it, you guys pay attention to that little metal thing. Again, it looks like this, and so that way you guys can orient it. So then when we home the machine, the laser head is going to be over here. Now that we have these linear guides preset, what we're going to do next is we're going to install the gantry. And I realized that this right here, what I had mentioned before, this is the limit switch plate. So just make sure that this is on the side or the opposite side of where you're going to have the wires running down. So in my case, I'm going to have, again, the head on that corner when it gets homed, and then all the wires are going to be here on the side, which are going to stick out about 7 inches out. And so what we're going to do is we're going to install the gantry, and we're going to have to remove this bump stop right here on both sides, this one as well, and also this limit switch plate right here. So let's get those removed, and then we can slide the gantry on there. We just removed the bump stops and the limit switch plates, and when you go to remove the bump stops, it's going to look like this, and you want to remove this rubber piece first, and then you can get to this one below it. You're going to use a 4mm Allen wrench, and then for the limit switch plate, it's a 3mm. So just make sure you guys keep these oriented the proper way. I don't think it really matters which one these go on, but just to be on the safe side, we're going to make sure that we know where they go. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use a forklift to lift this up, the gantry, and then slide it in there. We have the first side exposed, and just so you guys have an idea what it looks like before you start cutting, so we have this little box here. I'm not quite sure what all the names for these parts are, but we have this little box right here. We obviously have some hoses there, so just be careful when you're cutting. And then the bottom, what you're going to see is there's bearings where you're going to align it so it tracks correctly, but this is what it's going to look like. And then it did have these pieces of wood that were underneath here, and that's just to protect the bottom. But yeah, when you guys start cutting these up, just be careful. So we're gonna cut the next or the other side up, and then we'll show you what that looks like. This is the other side we just finished opening up, and as you guys can see, we have some limit switches right there, or a limit switch there, and then we have another one around the corner in the front. So again, just be careful when you guys are opening this up, not to slice through this wire right there. And then let me show you the other side. So there's not as many components on this side as there is on the other side, but everything on the bottom looks about the same. So let's get this lined up, and again, we're using our forklift. So if you guys have a forklift, it's probably going to be the best. And then, or if you guys have like an engine hoist, just something that's going to be, you know, safe to lift this and put it in place. So let's get this on. We got the first set of bearings in. And if you guys have a forklift, if you're doing this alone, a forklift is definitely going to be your best friend. I think with two hands it would be a lot easier, but even with just one person, it's not too difficult. So what you want to make sure is obviously you line up those bearings, those roller bearings, and they'll go into these grooves right here. There's a groove right here, and then there's a groove on the other side right here. So you want to make sure that goes in there. So we have one side in there, and then we have the other side in there. Just be careful when you guys are doing this. This limit switch here is fairly close, so you can either remove it or just, you know, obviously be careful not to damage it when you guys lower it. But we're gonna push them all in, get it on there, and then we'll start doing our fine-tuning of the leveling. So the gantry is mostly all the way through, or I would say pretty much all the way through. But before we push it all the way, we just want to double check that everything is sitting where it's supposed to. These roller bearings are on this groove right here on both sides, all three of them. Same with on that side, and then everything else looks pretty good. So if this tries to fight you a little bit, which, you know, it wasn't too bad actually, you just want to push one. You got to make sure that you kind of get it on there a little bit even. My driveway obviously is not leveled this way or that way, so everything's a little bit off. But I was able to get one side first, then I pushed the other side, and then you'll see there's this like black roller that's going to catch onto these teeth right here. So you just want to make sure that it goes on there, and it'll line up pretty good, or pretty easily. But everything looks pretty good. Now we're gonna push it completely off the forklift. Right now it should be off the forklift. Let's see, let's double check. Yep, it's off the forklift, and I just have it right there just for safety measures, just in case. But yeah, let's push it and then start rolling it back and forth and see where everything sits. Now that we got the gantry all the way in, we're gonna start putting back the bump stops and the limit switch plate that goes on this side. But one thing to note is once you guys get it on here, obviously you guys are going to push it back all the way, and it'll hit these bump stops right there. And what happened to me, or what may happen to you too, and it's an easy fix, is you'll get to it and one will hit and then the other one will have a slight gap or a larger gap. So what you want to do is you want to, or what I did is the one that was, so that one hit first and then there was a gap on this one. So what I did is I just grabbed it from this end and kind of pulled on it slightly, pushed it back, checked the other side, pushed it back, and I did that over about 3 times. And then so that way the rails align. I mean, you can align them from the get-go before you put it on, but just in case you run into that, it's really easy to fix. You just pull on one side, or if it was that side, you do the same thing. But once you get it on there, then you push it back, and then you should have a nice contact on both ends. So yeah, now we're gonna go ahead and put these bump stops back, and then we're going to move on to the next step. Now that we have our gantry on there, we're going to install the drag chain, and we ended up kind of changing things around here. We had it flipped over the other way, so we flipped it this way, so that way when we home it, instead of it being on this corner, we're going to have it over on this corner. But other than that, we're going to go ahead and start installing the drag chain. And this time, instead of it going on the outside like how we were going to have it originally, it's going to go on this side right here. And you guys will notice that there's some numbers on here. You got 1, 2, 3, and 4. So, and also you'll see that there's insert nuts in there. So you're just going to match those up with the drag chain, and let's go ahead and install that. But that should be pretty straightforward as well. So here's our drag chain, and the bolts that you'll be using should come zip tied to the drag chain itself. So let's go ahead and install this, and we'll show you guys how that's done. So now that we have all the wires running down our drag chain, what we want to do is we want to remove all of these clips from this drag chain. And in order to do that, you're going to have to remove these bolts right here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. And to do that, there's going to be some nuts on the inside. So what you want to do is remove these bolts on the back side, so that way you can access those nuts. And then also you're going to remove this bolts right here. Next, we're going to install the drag chain on our Z-axis. So the drag chain, there's going to be a few bolts in the front right here, 4 of these, and then there's going to be 3 on the top. So 2 right there, and then 2 on the other side. And those are going to go right here, these top 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So remove those go right there, and then you got your 3 on the top, 1, 2, and there's a third one right there. So we just got done installing the Z-axis drag chain, and again, it's these 4 bolts you're going to unscrew and then bolt back on. And then up here, it's going to be 1, and then 2 and 3 on the other side. And these ones have nuts on the other side, so by opening this back side, you should be able to tighten those ones right there, all 3 of those, from the inside. I don't know if you guys can see them, but they're back there. So yeah, you're just gonna have to put your hand in there. It's pretty easy, but get all that tightened up, remove all these little clips, and now we're gonna move on to our laser head. And we just got to be careful. So we ran the line already. You just got to be careful to not kink this line right here. So we gave enough slack, we ran it through, and then we ran it through here. And how you do that is when you remove this bolt right here, you just lift this up, and you should be able to squeeze that in through there. I don't know if you guys can see through there. You just slide it in, and then it goes in. So we're going to run it over, and to install it, the head, it's pretty simple. You have another 4 bolts here, so you're going to unscrew those, and that's how you're going to bolt it on. So let's get this laser head on there. Alright, so to get the last bolt in, it's behind here, so you will have to remove this piece right here, and there's 4 bolts, little small bolts that you'll have to take out. We're going to start connecting all of these hoses and some of the wiring, and I've already connected 2 of them. So you got your nitrogen here, which is going to connect to the metal fitting right here. You have your oxygen connecting to the plastic fitting. So what I did is I held this while I pushed this in until I felt it hit bottom. So you're going to run those there. Then these other ones, you got your in and outs, you're gonna run them over. And then these are just gonna match up with your other small hoses, and they'll be marked. So this one's in, and you have this one that's out. So you just match them up, and then you're gonna have these 3 wires running through and over. Also, these are all keyed, and they're all different. They all have different plugs. So you're gonna utilize these 2 up here and this one right here. So these are pretty easy to install. So you won't be able to mess them up, just because they all have different fittings. So you'll see that like these have 4, so they'll match up to the 4. But other than that, let's get this connected, and then we'll move on to the next step. Almost forgot, there's this hose right here that comes out, and what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to kind of push it in there and slightly bend it, so that way it clears the bottom of the drag chain, and then you run it over. Then once you run it over, you're going to connect it down here, but you might notice that like this one, it's a little too long, so you might need to cut it to size, so that way it's not, doesn't hang over. Okay, so we ran all the wires. So we got this one connected. We got the top 2 connected. And again, these are all different fittings, so you won't mess those up. Then we have the side one here. I went ahead and I trimmed this hose. It was a little bit too long. Then we have our in and our outs. This is our outs. And we got our in connected to the small hoses. Then what I did is I kind of organized everything so it's feeding into the drag chain. So nothing, what I did is double check that nothing is being kinked, especially these little small hoses. Everything kind of has a nice place in it, or a nice spot. And then we ran everything over, and now we're gonna kind of organize and tuck these hoses back in so there's not all that slack. But that's what it's looking like. So we have everything tucked away nice and neatly. Then we put all the clips back on the drag chain on this side, and you just want to make sure that nothing is being pinched. So just double check everything's got enough slack. Then we started on this side, and before you start putting all the clips on this side, you're going to want to run some of these lines, and there's going to be a N2 line right there. You're going to have an O2 line, and they're all labeled. You're going to have your outs, and you're going to have your in, and these are the longer hoses that are going to be wrapped up. So you just match them up, and again, everything is labeled. So N2 with N2, O2 with O2. You got your out with your out, and your in with your in. And one little trick when you put these hoses in, you want to push them in, and you can wiggle them a little bit back and forth and push them in, and that'll set them all the way. So now that we have these hoses, we're going to start tucking everything away. Make sure again that there's no kinks anywhere. Make sure you have enough slack here. Everything looks good. I kind of organized things a little bit just to make sure that everything sits the best it can. But now we're going to put all the clips on here and kind of organize it, and then we'll move on to the end over there. Alright, so we got all the lines and wires going down the drag chain. We put all the clips on. We just made sure that everything was nice and organized. There's enough slack here. Nothing is pinched. All the connections are fully in. And then next, what we're going to do is we're going to install this cover right here. And this cover is going to go over like this. And you'll see that there is a cutout right there. So with that cutout, you're going to want to make sure that these lines go through. So you got this oiler line right here, and then you got another little hose right here. So just make sure that you put these two through the notch right there. And also when you put it in, just double check that nothing's being pinched. So how you're gonna mount this is there's a few slots right there. You got 2 on that side, 2 on the other side, and then 2 at the bottom. So you got 6 in total. So it's gonna be these 2 right here, 1, 2. Then you have the other 2 on the back side, and then you have these 2 right here at the bottom. So just make sure you line them up, and then you just want to tighten it down. The cover is on, and again, you just want to double check that you're not pinching anything. So in here, just check. There's a little opening right there where some of the cables will go through. Double check there. Then also the little notch right here, that's where you're going to have this hose and this line right here running through. So on this end, once you run all the wires through and you put all the clips, you're going to want to run the other hoses and lines through the back. There's an opening there, and what we did is we put some foam there just so it's not rubbing, and then you're going to install this under here, and that's how we have it for now. So we're going to move on to the next step. We're going to start wiring some cables up, and we're going to start with this right here, these ones. So we're going to feed these through this one right there. So let's go ahead and do that, and then we'll show you where everything goes. We got them all fit in there, and when you put them in there, just be careful. You know, you can shove them in halfway and then just go around and make sure they come out nice and neatly. They're pretty easy to feed in, but once you feed them all in, then you just tighten it from the back. Now we're gonna start with these 2 green ones right here. And so these ones, this one right here is going to go in the back, and then this one right here is going to go in the front. So this one will be going up here, and then this other one is going to be going in the back over on this side right there. So let's start with those right now. So we got our first set of wires plugged in, and we ran this green one, the one that goes up here, we ran it across, kind of down, tucked it in behind, ran it down. We ran it underneath just to keep everything nice and neat. All of this is very, very organized, so we kind of want to keep that theme going. And then the second one, we ran it across, over, and then to the back. And then we plugged it in right there, and then we ran the wire behind there and kind of tucked it in behind, and so that way it has a nice home right there. So is it necessary for you to do all that? Not really. I mean, you can just, you know, plug them in, but again, because all of this is very organized, we just want to keep it that way, and also because my OCD does kick in. So now what we're going to do is we're going to move on to all of these wires. And these wires are also, while it may seem like a lot and maybe a little bit intimidating, it's quite straightforward and simple. So all of these are labeled. You'll see that they have like a Z, this one's Z. See if I can focus in. Sorry, my camera's not focusing, but okay. There we go. This one's Z. Then we have, for instance, Y1. We have another Z, plus and minus, Y1. So what you're going to do is you're just going to match them up. So all of these will match up with the ones behind there, and those are also labeled. Once you match those up, then you're going to match each one of these individually up with the other side. So again, these all have a matching partner on the other side, and you guys will be able to see everything is labeled. So just double check that, you know, you're matching everything up correctly. So let's go ahead and start doing that. So we are done connecting all of these smaller wires, and honestly it was really easy. So again, it might look a little intimidating, but you can't mess up. Everything is labeled properly. You know, you have the labeling of the yellow strip down there, you have the labeling on the wires. Then each individual wire is also labeled, and you just have to match them up with the other side. So how we did it, just to keep it nice and organized, is we ran all of the wires that connect on this side, we ran them underneath, so that way the top is exposed and it just looks nice and clean. So now the next step we're going to do is these wires right here, we're going to connect these ones right here. And honestly, it doesn't really matter which order you go in. You can either connect these first and then those, or in our case, we connected these first and then we're going to do these. So let's go ahead and connect these, and those are going to connect all right here. So you have these 1, 2, 3, 4, and again, all of these are labeled. So all you have to do is just match up the letter, and then just plug everything in. All right, so we finished all the wiring for this side, and now we just did the wiring for the chiller. And the wiring for the chiller is going to be over on this side. Once you connect everything, so you're going to have a line coming out of your chiller, the front. It's going to go back there. That one that comes out of there is going to run into here, the back of this, and then the other side, you're going to run it and feed it in through this hole right here. Once you feed it in through there, then it's going to come out through there, and you just match up the wires over on this side. Once you're done with this, you're going to have one wire left over, this yellow one right here. It's the ground. It'll say PE on it, and this one you're going to install into this green connection right here. This is a little tricky, so what you're gonna have to do is, there's one behind it, you're gonna stick like a flathead down there and then twist it, which will push open in here, and you're gonna have to feed this wire in there to grab it. So you might have to play around with it a little bit, but it's the front one right there that you're gonna plug it into. The one behind it is where you're gonna stick that little flathead. Next thing we're going to be running is the hoses from the laser. So those long ones, you're going to have one that's going to be your out normal and your in normal. So the in normal will go on this outside one right here, and your out one will go on this one right here. So these are going to be the long ones that go to your laser. And then we're going to install the other hoses, these two right here, and these ones will go to the back of this part right here. So they're going to go behind here, in and out. So let's go ahead and connect those, or we already connected the long ones, so let's connect these ones right here. All right, so we moved some things around since the last clip, but I believe where we left off is these two lines right here. You have the in and the out. We were going to connect those. So those, you just run those and they connect to the back of here, and you'll see you have your in and then you have your out on this side right here, if you guys can see. But basically you just connect those. Once you connect those, you're obviously going to fill this with distilled water from behind here. Just make sure that when you guys fill it up, once you fill it up, run it, check it again, and then just top it off. And then lastly, what you'll need to do is you will need to make some plugs. And I bought these 50 amp plugs from Home Depot. And so you have one for this monitor here, you have one for the chiller and the laser source. So for the monitor, I also bought a 6-gauge wire. I did about 10 feet, but you do, whatever you need. So pretty easy. And then for the laser source, also there's a plug, that middle one right there. And then lastly for the chiller. So I labeled mine. Obviously you guys want to double check on yours, but for the chiller, I have 30 amps. Then for the laser source, I have 40 amps, and then 50 amps for this one right here, the monitor. So again, it's fairly simple, but you definitely will have to make your own. And again, Home Depot or any hardware department, you should be able to get these. So as you guys can see, I fabricated a custom stand for these. Obviously you guys organize it however works best for you. But as you guys can see, we've already been using the laser table for quite some time now. So we'll be following up with some videos on some of the parameters, how we're using our table, and some tips and tricks on the software. But you will have a technician that will get on the phone with you, and they will walk you through the entire program, kind of set you up with some parameters to get you started with. But obviously you'll have to, you know, fine tune your settings to the material that you're using. But overall, this laser table has been really easy to operate. It's been working flawlessly. We're definitely very fortunate, and you know, the only regret that we have is not getting one sooner. So but other than that, hopefully you guys got some good information from this video, and again, we will do our best to follow up with some more videos.